Men and women are vastly different biologically, in the way we think, our thought processes, in our abilities, and in the way we respond to life in general. It's no wonder that we are constantly trying to figure each other out, sometimes with a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of misconceptions, so many myths. Today, we want to attempt to talk about these differences. Welcome to Reality Check. My name is Rachel Mwine. I am your host. On this channel, we care for hearts and minds, and we have conversations around relationships, marriage, workplace, parenting, and I'm joined by two lovely guests. One who is not new to you, Dr. Evas Canary. She's a marriage therapist, a parenting coach, relationship coach, also the founder at International Center for Family Life and Mental Health. And on my right is Canary Ambrose. Canary is a clinical psychologist, also a trained therapist for marriages and families, as well as addictions. So if you're struggling in that area or you need information in that area, these are the people to come to. Welcome to the show, gentleman and lady.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a hot topic, differences between men and women.
Sure.
We are constantly trying to figure each other out. When we come together in relationships, men say women are impossible, women say men are complicated, they are hard to understand. And so today we want to attempt, it's a wide topic, so we won't cover it in its entirety,
Sure.
but we want to try and have this conversation. And so I want to start by asking you, what would you say are the major differences, at least the ones we need to take note of, between men and women in how we view life in general and personality? Yeah. Who wants
should
to go
start?
first?
Ladies first.
Ladies first. Okay, we'll start with you. We'll start with
Okay.
you, Evas.
No, start with me. So I'll start with men are different from women.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
And I can stop there.
You can stop there, yes. But people don't get it.
People don't get it. They don't get it, and in our work line, we meet so many frustrated people. And when you were talking, I just remember the famous statement, what's wrong with men?
Yes.
What's wrong with
With
women?
women.
And I remember a colleague of ours years back who took it to another level and said, women are so high maintenance.
Okay.
And then I asked him, why didn't you marry a man?
Aha.
You know, who is low maintenance?
Yes.
So you stepped out to look for a person different from you, but you only need a few parts of their difference, and you don't want the whole entire
package.
person. So I'm so glad we are having this conversation and helping people to know that most of the differences we have in relationships are because we are different.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And it's normal to be different. And someone who is different from you is still normal.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
But most of the time we project it in a way that someone who is different from you is abnormal. Yet you need them. Okay, so what are the major differences? There are many differences which I think we're going to talk about in thinking, in problem solving, in stress management, in so many things. Our mental outlook to life is absolutely different. I'll start with what people have always talked about. That you've had statements of men are not emotional, women are emotional. And I tell people that every human being is emotional.
Yeah.
It is in how we express emotions. So men approach situations logically. Men are also emotional, but when they are approaching life and how they analyze issues and how they look at things happening, they tend to be more logical. So there is always a sense of why is this happening? Because every time we approach, especially crisis, we are saying, how can this be resolved? So a man, a man's mind always looks at it in an analytical way to see why behind the what.
The what?
Right? And so that's what tends to frustrate women. Women, on the other hand, look at situations emotionally.
Yes.
So they always want to gauge with how that makes them feel and how probably what has happened makes another person feel. Right? And this is in everything, even decision making, even relationships. So you'll find, for instance, let me give an example. So a friend of a family maybe has a challenge, and so a woman will quickly connect with that emotion and say, oh, how are these people feeling? I think we need to go now. And then or do something. And then the man will say, but does it matter now? We can even go tomorrow. And so that becomes a source of conflict because none of them is connecting with how the other person is approaching it. So it's always very important that both men and women understand that they are normal in doing this, in thinking, in analyzing situations that happen. I could give another example, which I think I remember from my early years of marriage, managing house helps. Right? So a woman will get into all these details and say, oh, can you imagine she doesn't wash plates? Okay, she doesn't. Okay. But in doing that, she doesn't want to fire this house help. So she is basically trying to get the man to connect with how she's feeling. So when she takes this to a man and says, can you imagine this? She even looked at me a certain way when I spoke. All she needs is the man to just validate how she's feeling. But the man will quickly, analytically, and logically, and say, why don't you fire her?
There's a problem. Here's the solution.
Simple. Yeah, so there is that simplicity in terms of how both men and women approach things. I think, to me, that's one of the major big.
And we'll get to how how the differences are misunderstood. But just off the bat, that example you've given, when I go to my husband and I say, oh, they made this, they made that, and he's like, fire her. It's almost like, first of all, you're not hearing me. Then I will conclude that you're not even being loving because I am telling you my problem and you're coming up with this solution, which is not working for me.
That's right.
Yes, and that's a misconception.
That's right.
About the difference. Yeah. The gentleman in the room.
I think for me, how different men are from women. You look at biological, psychologically. I mean, when you look at the brain connections in women, they're so different from men. Women have more right to left brain connections than men, which explains the multitasking that the women are able to do. Yes. And also, maybe we'll delve into it later, emotionally, how we respond, what we call emotional strategies, is how we respond to emotional cues very differently. For example, that's why I'll take your example. When the maid is having issues, you will go to your husband. That's called social support. So you'll go to him and you're telling him this is happening. And probably because there's no lack of listening skills, which we lack, because our emotional strategies, we rank high in things like avoidance. Avoidance. And then we also rank high in things like, men rank high in other behavioral emotional strategies, like going to drink, going to play a game.
And not really attacking the issue.
Not really attacking the issue. So that's why we are easily going into the solution. Don't have to deal with the emotions. But women, the emotional strategies like rumination. So you sit and talk about it,
dissect
and delve
it
into it. So there are those major key differences.
And I think that brings us to one of the major areas where we clash a lot, which is communication. can we speak about the differences there? And I know you've already set a foundation that there's the logic and then there's the emotion. But what are those differences in terms of how we communicate? But more importantly, how can we leverage them? I think as we speak about the misconception or the myth, let's talk about how we can leverage or start to communicate better as men and women. Yeah.
I think the major difference in communication, taking it from Virginia's satire, is that women speak in spirals.
Yeah.
We communicate in spirals.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's important. And I think it's beautiful when you think about it. There's nothing wrong with that. Is that you get to get the whole story. For example, I would ask my wife, okay, how was your day? Yeah. I want her to tell me how she felt during the day.
Yeah.
To know, this guy came to the bank, and then there was this, and she's giving me the whole. By the time we get to her,
how she felt.
Yeah, how she felt.
You're like, can we finish?
Yes, and men more linear, straight to the point.
Yeah.
Now,
Which is boring, just for the record. You see that? Boring.
Yes.
Yeah. So just picking it from there. So men are more linear, and this is also to do with the brain makeup.
Yes.
And so they tend to be structured. And so there are no many no much connectivity. And so and I'm emphasizing this for women listening to know that they are normal.
Yeah, it's very normal.
They are not boring. They are absolutely normal. And actually it can come off boring because they just tell a little thing. For instance, your husband comes home and you say, "How was your day?" They go, "Fine."
Fine. Flat.
You get it? That's it. Fine is long. They can even say, "Okay."
Okay.
Now, for him, he's communicated because when he checks, it's like, there's no more detail. Like, for
There's
what?
nothing,
And it is okay for a start. Now, I'm not, and I always emphasize this, men need to know that even when they say that, the wife is expecting some detail. So when you are alone and you're running this, you're okay, that's okay. But then when you know that someone has an expectation on you for a little detail, sometimes it's very important to step out of your comfort zone and say. Women, on the other hand, because of our brain connectivity and so much, we are able to deal with detail in communication, as Canary has said, the spiral, whatever. We tend to get into detail. The detail is because of the way the brain is connected. Because there's this connection to this and this and this and this. And so, and even in language development, you remember, when we are studying language development in psychology, it's very clear that women are more articulate. So we are more articulate, we are detailed, we more, and we also connect with we connect emotions to everything that we are saying, right? That doesn't make us abnormal.
No.
So why I'm emphasizing this is I've had men say, women with rugambo, like too much, she talks too much. Don't belittle. This person is actually gifted in getting detail. Now, so let me connect the two. When you have one who is more strategic in their thinking and more linear, and you have someone who brings detail, this is an advantage.
Amazing.
This is an amazing, amazing advantage for partnership in marriage, because then each person should benefit from the other. Right? But what happens? People sit back and say, "May I just say a few things?" And you say, "Okay." And you're so unempathetic to know that your partner is actually expecting conversation. Now, that's my second point. Women desire conversation.
We crave it.
We crave it. Women crave conversation.
Yeah.
And that's one way to communicate love.
Yes.
That's one way to communicate care.
Yes.
Because women cleanse, they do emotional cleansing by through conversation.
Yes.
Preach, Dr. Evas, preach.
You see that? And it is okay. So when you have this person, now, let me liken it to a mother who has a child, and you know your child is going to get well through breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And you say, this child is also
breastfeed.
no, is high maintenance.
High maintenance. Yes.
You see?
Yeah.
So we all have to know that in relationships, there's an expectation on you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when a husband knows that this woman gets nourished through conversation.
Yeah.
And conversation, by the way, is one way to strengthen relationship.
It really
Maybe to add on to it,
Yeah.
it's true what doctor is saying, because women recover faster than men when you look at mood disorders.
Yeah.
Because of
The talking.
The talking.
Yes. Yes.
Narration.
so there's a beauty in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And men have very severe mood disorders
Yes.
and other related behavior
Yes.
issues
Yes.
because of not talking
Yeah.
and the avoidance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, what he's saying, I've always spoken to men, and let me say this again.
Yeah.
And of course, every time we talk about this, it's more accusatory, but that's not where we are coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're providing information so that
Yes.
men understand. If you have connected with men-to-men relationships, there is a psychologist in the US who described them as gorilla.
Gorillas.
Gorilla. So they have gorilla kind of relationships, and this is how he explained it. There is a zoo in the US which was depending on gorillas as the main tourist attraction. So one time there was an epidemic that killed all the gorillas. So when they died, these guys didn't want to lose business. So what did they do? They got people to act,
Like
to
gorillas.
mask as gorillas. And so they got the first one, trained them, and said, "This is how you act. This is when tourists come, they just do. So you do this." So the person who was trained started acting. Then they brought a second person and said, "This is actually a true gorilla. So you're going to see how they act, and you do exactly that." So the second person came and did that. They got a third person, trained them, and said, "These are two true gorillas, but we want a third one so that we can have." And so they trained the third. Now, when they were acting, one of them said, "Oh my God." They fell. He tripped
And fell.
So when he was falling, he said, "Oh my God." And the other one said, shut up. We are all acting. And so he was explaining how men relate and how, you know, how they converse. So when they have challenges, they all act. So men-to-men relationships, he can be in the bar. He has had, he's fleeing home. He hasn't had any conversation with the wife in the past 3 months. And he's actually basically running away as, you know, as a stress outlet. And the friend or colleague or wherever, they'll ask, "How are you doing?" "Oh, fine, terrific." "How's your family?" "Amazing, we're good." So there is a lot of acting for men. And even when they are suffering, they will not come out and say, "I'm going through this." Because for them, doing that, I don't know whether I'm jumping the gun, but I'm talking about being vulnerable to one another, is actually a sign of weakness. And that's why most of them suffer mood disorders and so much depression, because they bottle up.
People don't know how to value vulnerability, especially for men. And that would cause me to say, I always tell the women, create an environment where the man's vulnerability is valid. Yes, but that goes both ways. Also, it's okay for you to be emotional. I mean, I've had times when, I remember this very significant time, my wife, were going through something and she broke down and cried. And I knew this was my moment. I broke down too. and we both cried.
Cried, yeah.
Yes. Next day, everyone was fine, going about their business.
Okay.
That was resolved.
Really?
Yes.
Because you sort of both connected in your
Yes,
vulnerability.
Yes.
Interesting.
So vulnerability connects with vulnerability.
Yeah.
And men need to learn, I guess it's the whole thing of how we are fathered, you know. We need to start knowing. I remember there's one guy who told me, never apologize to your wife.
There are many men who believe that.
Yes.
It's sad.
That's very wrong.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to accept vulnerability because you're getting in touch with yourself.
Yeah.
And learning how to be vulnerable, like doctor is saying, helps you solve so many issues. That's why women, when something happens, she comes, she'll shout at you.
Open,
and the next day, she'll be
she's
fine.
Cool, yeah, because she's taking it off her chest.
And because you didn't get that opportunity to vent out, so you hold it. And the next day, you're still holding it.
Yeah.
You're still angry.
Yeah.
And it's out of social context.
Yes.
That's when we say now it's become an issue because you're angry at something that happened yesterday and you're still keeping it with you.
You don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it.
I want us to first slide back to the aspect of communication. We understand that, you know, men are different from women in terms of how they communicate. Women are detail oriented. Men are more big picture, one line oriented. So now let's say we're in a marriage and marriage really is about making compromises for each other. How do I then communicate to my husband how I am feeling without losing his attention? Because sometimes when you're talking, you're like, I think I've lost him. Because you must, for us, the dots must connect.
Yeah.
In order for me to explain to you how I'm feeling, I must start from yesterday because that's where it began from.
Yeah.
For you, you understand maybe an hour ago. So what's the middle ground?
The middle ground, Rach, I'm so glad we slide back to communication because I felt like we were
jumping. Which is fine.
Which is wonderful. That's exactly what happens. Now, when we understand that this man's brain has issues with detail, I've always told women that once we wrap, you're going to lose him. Yeah. Because the brain is going to be overwhelmed. He's going to connect so many things. So it's not unusual for a wife talking to their husband and say, we need to talk. And if we'll talk about that. We need to talk, and here's I'm in trouble. Yeah. Now, so he already switches into flight mode. Then you come. If you're lucky, he says, okay, let's talk. So you start. Usually we don't start from last week. We start from when we were dating, and we've been married 17 years.
You told me when we were dating.
Even when we were dating, you couldn't hold my hand. Now you see, this is still an issue. Yesterday. So it takes understanding. That's why I started from the point of please understand. Because there is power in knowledge. So when you know that the person you're talking to may have issues connecting lots of details, right? You're going to be mindful and you're going to say things and you're going to not wrap and get emotional. And then I also talk about how men connect with women's emotions. But on the part of the wife, just be mindful that you're talking to someone who may not connect so much detail. And most of the time, men have challenges with how much we store. So a wife will say, do you remember in 2001 when we were dating? And immediately the man will say, really? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. 2001.
You're so wicked. Like you can actually hold on to this up to now. Of course, I'll mention they'll smuggle this in and say anything unresolved, a woman's brain is able to store it.
Oh, for sure.
Because of our capacity to connect so many dots, we don't just quickly discard. Now, that shouldn't scare any man to see the wife go that side. But coming back to the detail that we have to help this man understand, a wife has to be mindful that so much detail is likely to overwhelm their husband. Correct. But going to the men, they need to understand that a woman, always when they are explaining, they have to connect things to help you understand. So they are not just wickedly trying to bring up things they haven't resolved in their brains, but they are actually doing it with the intention to articulate it and break it down for you so that you understand how they feel. So they are not going to quickly say, do you know how you've made me feel? They will say this and this and that and that, and then come in spirals, as Canary was explaining, and then get it to you. So don't freak out. So if when I'm talking to men, I say, don't freak out, just listen.
Yeah.
And by the way, can I tell men that when a woman is going into all that detail, the part that needs solution is so small.
Very small.
Much of it actually needs validation through active listening.
Yes.
Just active listening and showing that you're connecting with their emotion. Yeah. So I'll tell you so many things, and you go like, So when a woman senses that the husband understands, you may not even offer any solution. Yep. You go like, oh, I've got you. Oh, that's how it made you feel. I get it. Even before you say sorry, she's already forgiving.
Sorted.
You understand? Yes. So that detail, I've explained it, how both of us are able to, because the woman does that. Now, to connect it with my next point is that men need to understand that women, when something happens, they resolve it by talking.
Yes.
Right? We solve problems by talking. That's why whenever something happens like this, men will hear a statement, can we talk?
Yes.
Right? Yes. So narration is the way a woman wants to resolve an issue. Yeah. Now, we have some who just shut down. But most of the time, they shut down because they've been blocked. But the moment a woman says, can we talk about this? I really want to ask husbands, please listen. That's one way. Don't freak out. Don't run into bars. Don't run to the workplace and say, I have a job, I'll come back at I meet so many who say, I work and sense when she's probably sleeping, then I go. Don't do that. Because when a woman doesn't cleanse their soul by talking about things, they just cleanse. That's one way we cleanse and solve problems. But when a man shuts down and this woman feels suffocated, that's potential for exploding. And when a woman doesn't talk about issues, they're potentially going to explode. That's true. Right? And that's not healthy. And I've been saying that every problem can be resolved when the two parties commit to understanding each other and listening to one another. So men, listen. Yeah. You see?
Yeah. And you talk about cleansing through conversation. The truth is, women will definitely find an outlet for that conversation because as women, we talk to each other. Yeah. But you're missing out on an opportunity to connect with her. And if she realizes, okay, I can't have conversations with my husband because he doesn't like detail, he thinks I talk too much, he's spending time in the bar or at work, then she's going to find connection somewhere else. Not necessarily a man, by the way. It may not even be an affair. No. It might be with her girlfriends or her mom or her sisters. And then the relationship now becomes mechanical. It becomes high level. Kind of like the way you want it, without the encumbrances of fights and conversations and arguments, which can be uncomfortable, but in the end, that statement that you like to say, that joy is hidden underneath
problem solving. Can I just actually build on that?
Sorry, Canary.
Sorry, Canary, but let me just follow up on this. The issue of men running, but at the same time, they don't want their family secrets out. You see? So when men understand that if they gave audience to their wife to just speak, they could be wrong, they could be the person that are perpetuating whatever it is. But listen to them. For them, for your wife, that's the way a problem gets solved. Yes. Now, I want to tell men that anytime you suffocate your wife and she can't find an opportunity to talk to you, cleanse and all that. Women are not really great with bottling stressful emotions. So what are they going to do? They are going to look for an outlet. And that's how most of the time family issues find themselves in the public sphere. You see? So then men complain. And they say, you're going to gossip. Why did you talk to your parents about me? Why did you talk to your friends about me? Why did you talk to... Because a woman wants to solve this through conversation. So
let's have those conversations.
Let's have the conversation. So in addition to connection, attachment, and all that, then please provide a platform.
Yes, Canary.
I would look at why do men not provide the atmosphere for vulnerability for women. As Virginia said, people who lack proper communication are dealing with self-worth, lack of self-worth.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So because we have men who don't value themselves and they get their validity from the woman. Because when a man has a woman, that's why they put them on pedestals, because to them that's what brings self-worth.
Got it.
Now, if this woman is coming at him, and now...
Oh, the one who provides validity.
The one who provides validity.
Yes.
So for him, it's an attack. So I want to speak to the men and tell them to realize first, she's not attacking you. Yes. And it's okay for her to break down before you. And to listen. And it has nothing to do with your self-worth.
Absolutely not.
Yes, it has nothing to do with your self-worth.
Yeah.
She still loves you, and the reason she's actually coming to you because she wants to resolve this.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
She wants to resolve this.
Yeah.
I mean, I face this most of the time. I see my wife coming to talk about an issue, and I have to remind myself, okay, this is not about
it's not about me.
This is not about me. We're resolving because we love each other. Underlying principle, we love each other. That's why we need to resolve this. So having a mindset, a perspective of this is a resolution,
for sure,
not an attack, not a revolution.
That's very interesting. I find men in situations like that, and maybe you can advise. Like you said, they feel attacked, so it's like walls up. I'm not going to allow, and then we hear things like, I don't like your tone. You're being disrespectful. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to raise an issue here, and then suddenly then there's faults on my part. Now I've raised an issue, and instead of acknowledging the issue or validating the issue, you go like, but also you have weaknesses.
And that's not the right
time. So
now
you've moved away from the issue.
From the issue,
just like in any other court, you don't accuse the person who
is accusing you.
That's not grounds. And that's the whole point of the listening skill.
That's right.
That I come here and I listen and I let you vent out. And I tell the women I've met in therapy, you have a right to your emotions. You have a right to your feelings. Because that's the whole point of me creating an environment where you can vent out.
Yes.
It's better for you to vent out when we're in the room than for me to let you vent out when we have visitors.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
But speaking of which, Canary, I'm going to make 2 points. Please remind me if I forget. One of them is the word count, and then also the emotions. Can I speak and protect men for
yes, please,
for once? I'm actually a friend of men, but let me just talk about emotions. Just to remind women that men don't know how to deal with our emotions. And when a woman breaks down and throws themselves around and lose it, a man gets stuck. The brain just shuts down. So they don't know what to do. And so I always advise, if you're going to have meaningful conversation, emotional regulation is important. And so for women, just to go to men and just cry and yell and do all that doesn't help anyone. That's why most of the time men hate conversation with women, because we just approach it emotionally. We cry, we yell, drama and all that. And then it's like, what do I do with this? So they get gone. So what do? You get into flight mode. Either you flee emotionally, you zone out, or you flee physically. So women have to understand that men don't do well with our emotions. If you're going to discuss something really important and you feel you need your husband's attention and audience, please deal with your emotions fast.
Yes.
You could break down maybe, but that usually never helps a great deal. So deal with it, cry, process it, and exercise a little bit of empathy. Understand that this man may not be able to see things the way you see them, and that helps you to calm down. But if you approach it with anger and protest and all that, and assure him and break yourself into pieces, he's not going to understand what you're saying. So you're entitled to your emotions. I don't disagree, but it's very important to make sure to bear in mind that if you're going to have productive conversations and have the attention of your partner, you need to be emotionally regulated. Related to that is being mindful of angry words, because you see, when you break into anger, into the anger zone, you're going to pick on angry words. And the moment you start throwing them around, the guy is going to zone out. Secondly, I talked about words. It's very important for women to understand that when men are communicating, they don't really do well on the verbal front. And we already talked about how we are more communicative, or the language development. We were good. We are very articulate and all that. Now, women are likely to use more words than men. Men use a few words to explain something, but it doesn't make them any inferior in communication. But also women, they use many words. Now I have to warn my brothers that if you give attention, you're actually going to hear a lot of repetitions.
That's true.
Lots of repetitions, and it's absolutely okay. You see, it's okay. Let her rap. Let her get all that. She's not disoriented. She's okay. She's just articulating and cleansing once again. But on the words, so most of the time, why I'm emphasizing this is men belittle and they say, "Why are you saying all those things?" It's okay. Let her talk. Okay. So the word, actually, I saw science puts it at an average daily word count for a woman, is put at 20,000 words, and most of them are repetitions. Men, on the other hand, average is actually 7,000 words. So you can see it's pretty. It's almost different 3 times. And
but
so
can I tell you on something?
Yeah.
Sometimes I found men, when they're in groups of men, they will rant. They talk. And you'll be amazed. You'll be like, okay, what happened? And when this guy goes back home,
silence.
Sealed.
But you see, if you listen to their conversations, you see men's relationships are mainly functional. They're talking soccer. They're talking politics, nothing about life. You rarely hear him say, "I struggled with my wife, you guys tell me." They don't go there. So theirs is not so relational, it is functional. So when they're discussing functional things, business, sijui what, all those things, they're going to talk. That's why, by the way, smuggling that in here is that when a man is married to you and they have their functional area, either they love soccer or they love politics, or if you're able as a wife to connect with them at that level, please do. Because then they have a point of connection. And those are some of the things that help them to unwrap and be able to break things down and tell you all the players in Man U and all that. It is okay. And give it patience. You see? So it's absolutely okay. But again, check. Their conversations are not
unless of
about
course,
emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
It depends sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the connections
with the men
yeah. Are deep, there are points of venting.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And the men will come out, and when they come out, you'll be surprised. They'll speak about it. And,
because they know they're not going to be interrupted.
Yes,
There's not going to be a show of emotions and drama and crying. So they're able to share, which goes back to Dr. Evas's point for the women to regulate those emotions. First, have time by yourself, calm down, process, dissect, and say, maybe, is it possible that I was in the wrong, you know? Because it's possible that you could be in the wrong, you know? And then when you approach your husband to talk about it, or your boyfriend, approach it from a more calm perspective. That way, even if you rant and like you have so many words, there is no drama. Because men are usually afraid of the drama. I mean, as we wrap this up, because I said in the beginning that this conversation is really wide and we can't finish it. Let's quickly talk about the external stresses. So a man is stressed at work. A woman is stressed, you know, by the things that are happening outside of the home, or maybe outside of their union, and how they each respond to those stresses, and perhaps how they can support each other. You know, because we typically know men, you talked about avoidance. So a man is going to avoid, he'll be quiet, he'll shut down, enter his cave, while the woman is maybe acting up at home, being snappy, talking back, yelling, or whatever. How do we, first of all, what is the difference in terms of how we manage it? But also, as women, how do we respond to the men? And as men, how do we respond to the women?
Yeah. Can I come in first? Just remind me of a person I spoke to recently, and he left me feeling so sorry for men. So men suffer. Aria talked about vulnerability, so probably I'll bring it in here. And they want to be vulnerable to their wives, but the way the wives respond. And this guy said, you know, that first time I attempted to be vulnerable, I was embarrassed. So wives tend to belittle. Now, when Canary was talking about him crying and breaking down, I thought, Canary, they are going to accuse you. But let's leave that. The thing is, women need to provide a conducive. Be mindful that this person, a man's number one need is actually to be a hero to their wife. So the last thing they want to do is to feel really vulnerable, very, you know, helpless and all that. And they don't want. This comes natural. They want to be in charge. And so every time he feels, he's going to have a number of times where he's not in charge. And for you to understand that that's normal, that's normal. Rachel, let me emphasize this. Do you know that there are some women in this world who believe a man is supposed to be in charge 100%, 24 hours a day, all the days of their lives? That's not possible. He's going to struggle. That's why I always ask women, do you understand your husband? Yeah. And what are their strong points? They go like, and then I say, what are their areas of struggle? And they have no idea. They have no idea. And a man is not going to come and be vulnerable to you if they sense, number one, you're not going to understand them, or you're going to belittle them, right? You're going to say, what kind of man are you who cries? You're going to say, you can't solve that. Please man up. If you're going to belittle them, you're the last person they will go to. And then you step back, just like I mentioned before. Women then step back and say, he can't tell me anything. He can't tell me anything. He's not going to tell you he's struggling at the workplace. If he realizes you're judgmental.
Or critical.
He will not. Or critical. You know, or you're going to gossip about him. Right? So he's not. If he senses you're not gracious and you're not understanding, he cannot. Because that's for us women, we run to our husbands because they are our shield.
Our shield, our safe space.
Our safe space. And we run to them and we are looking for protection. But a man is not looking for protection from their wife. No. And so if he is going to be vulnerable and really lay bare before you and be able to say, can you imagine my boss told me this or told me that? They expect that you're going to receive this and care for them and care. Probably pray for them and support them. And once you do that, you do it another day, you do it consistently, he's going to trust you, because we always be vulnerable to someone
that you trust,
that we trust, that we are secure. So if women don't provide that security, a man will never. And that's why they just struggle on their own. And then the next, I remember this guy tell me he was fired from work. And then the next morning, the wife stood there and said, so what are the plans? What plans do you have? You understand? This guy is still grieving. It's so fresh. And then this woman is saying, so what are we going to do? Now, what are you? You're the head. Please, man up. You know, men, you're... And it's amazing how we expect our husbands to express emotions, but at the same time, suffocate them. We suffocate them. So it is so important that women know that they need to calm down and receive this person. What they're expecting from you is not protection, but care. So do you care when he is struggling? What happens when his business fails? Can he tell you and expect that he will be secure? You'll not judge him, and you'll trust that he's in charge. But if you start questioning his decisions, I told you, even if he made a mistake, probably that doesn't help a great deal in the moment. So it's vulnerability will depend on how your partner feels secure and trusts that you care.
Wow. There you go. Yes,
Canary. So I would mention one thing I really love about my wife is she provides that care and place of vulnerability, and she's never used it against me.
Awesome.
Kudos
to you, Mrs. Canary.
I know. Because she also understands that. There's a dynamic. People misinterpret vulnerability for weakness. But there's no growth without vulnerability.
Absolutely.
This is true.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can't have growth without vulnerability.
And there's no support without vulnerability.
That's true.
Yes. And so it goes both ways. What I'll argue about how best the two can come together is, one, let's say you had an issue at work and then you show up home and she had an issue. You have to understand both of you are going through life. Both of you are going through life. And there is I would call it a borderline between seeking support and dumping your emotions on your partner.
Projecting.
Projecting. I'm trying to find, or transferring your problems on someone.
There needs to be some wisdom.
There needs to be wisdom. And understand also this person is struggling with a lot. So how best do we share with each other? One is be specific. If you're saying you're angry, what are you specifically angry about? I'm angry because my workmate did something that made me feel less of a person. Be specific. Even if you have noticed the anger has come out at the wrong time, because your partner might trigger you with something, you're like, you even doing, I'm angry. But then that's opportunity to say, okay, I'm angry because my workmate did this. So that your partner understands, so
it's
you're
not about
me. That's true.
Be specific. Communicate. Communication is all about getting to the detail.
The root of it.
I would really say men need to learn how to communicate. And you can learn. It's an art you can learn. I don't think I was a good listener. 5 years ago.
You are much better today.
Much better, because I took the opportunity to learn that, okay, how do I communicate? How do I be specific on my emotions? If I'm talking about, I am sad about something, what is it specifically? So that my partner can understand that this is coming out outside the home environment.
That's right.
Yes.
No, Rachel,
please.
Let me also, I felt like I gave one side of vulnerability, but let me also talk to men about their expectations of support from their wives when they haven't told them what they are going through. It's so unfair. It's very unfair. And so sometimes someone carries a bias that my wife is not going to understand or something. You keep things to yourself, but then you expect them to support. And most of the time they go even out of the way to accuse them. So as we mentioned, there's no support without vulnerability.
That's true.
If you expect your partner to support you, please be vulnerable. Now, can I also promise that once we get vulnerable, we grow together?
Yes.
Because the more you support each other, the more you connect. So if you're going through your things and your business is struggling and you're struggling at the workplace and I don't know who is disrespecting you and all these things, you're keeping them to yourself. I mean, what do you expect? And then you come home, you just...
You say, you don't know what I'm going through.
You don't know what I'm going
You don't understand.
You don't understand. And then you sit home. You're so unusual. So your partner is looking at you. And as I mentioned, when women sense something wrong, they will always be around you. What's going on? Is there any problem? Am I the problem? Please don't put your partner in that place.
Or manipulate them.
It's a way of manipulation. Now, while we said men always want to first process, you see that cave is not for keeping there. It is for reflection. So it is first line reaction to a situation. So don't keep there. If you want to connect with your partner and get their support, please tell them. Tell them what's going on. You may not probably get into the detail yet, but also don't make them anxious. Because if you hold on and they are sensing something wrong, they're going to be anxious. And then when they come to you, be gracious. You could even give a statement and say an assurance that something has happened, but I'll be okay. I'll tell you when I'm in a good place. That's simple.
It's good enough.
It's so simple, but helpful. So the most important thing is empathy. Empathy is absolutely important. Don't live alone. Don't live life alone and then you expect your partner's support. Then finally, on my part, Rachel, I think we also need to mention something about conflict management. When something happens, a man is likely to shut down. That's the whole cave thing. Which once again I want to emphasize, please don't keep there. Right? That cave is for emotional calming down, processing your thoughts, naming your emotions, finding out who you're angry at or what has happened and doing that. So a man is likely in the heat of challenges, they shut down. But then when a woman comes and says, what's wrong? Is there anything? Please understand where they are coming from. And a woman immediately is for talking about, resolving. So let's understand that and know that we are different, but we all mean well, and it's all in the interest of a good relationship.
For sure. For sure. Thank you both. Thank you, Canary. Thank you, Dr. Evas. Men and women are different, and that's okay. If you've not picked anything from the show and what we've said, just understand that we are different, first by the way we are made up, and then the way we think, our processes, our responses, and it is okay. It doesn't make you abnormal. It doesn't make your husband or your partner less loving because he's not expressing emotion. It doesn't even make him, that he's not prone to vulnerability. He is. He's just dealing with a way to express it because it's different from yours. So thank you once again for watching our channel. We hope this conversation has been insightful as it has been for us. It's always a pleasure to give you this information, but as we give you, we are also learning and reevaluating ourselves. Let us know in the comment section what you think are the major differences between men and women. Which one do you find the most amusing? Which one do you find the most frustrating? And which one are you working through on your part as a woman and then on your part as a man? We'll be back next week with another conversation right here on Reality Check. Please subscribe to our channel, like this episode, and share it with a friend or a member of your family. Bye-bye.